Friedrich Wilhelm I of Prussia, known historically as the Soldier King, ruled the Kingdom of Prussia from 1713 to 1740. Born in 1688, he was the son of Friedrich I of Prussia and Sophia Charlotte of Hanover. His reign marked a transformative period in the history of Prussia, transitioning the kingdom from a relatively minor state into a militarized and bureaucratically efficient power within the Holy Roman Empire and Europe at large. Friedrich Wilhelm I's legacy is one of discipline, frugality, and militarization. Though overshadowed in popular memory by his son, Friedrich the Great, his contributions laid the foundational structure upon which Prussia's later greatness was built. Friedrich Wilhelm I was born on the 14th of August 1688 in Berlin. As the only surviving son of Friedrich I, the first king in Prussia, Friedrich Wilhelm was raised with a strong sense of duty and religious piety. His mother, Sophia Charlotte, was intellectually inclined and associated with Enlightenment thinkers. However, Friedrich Wilhelm rejected intellectualism and courtly extravagance, opting instead for a Spartan and practical worldview that defined his reign. His education focused on religion, military science, and administration. He was deeply influenced by Calvinist doctrines, which emphasized discipline, hard work, and frugality. These early values clashed with the Baroque flamboyance of his father's court, which Friedrich Wilhelm saw as wasteful and effeminate. When Friedrich I died in 1713, Friedrich Wilhelm ascended to the throne, and one of his first acts as king was to slash the royal household expenditures and disband his father's lavish court. He dismissed hundreds of servants and entertainers, redirected funds to the military, and sold off royal luxuries. This marked the beginning of what would become the most frugal and militaristic reign in Prussian history. Friedrich Wilhelm saw the monarchy not as a personal indulgence, but as a public trust. Political philosophy was grounded in the idea of the state as an extension of the sovereign's moral duty. In 1706, Friedrich Wilhelm I married Sophia Dorothea of Hanover, the daughter of Georg Ludwig, Elector of Hanover, who would later become King George I of Great Britain. The marriage was politically strategic, strengthening ties between the Hohenzollerns and the British royal family. However, it was also marked by tension. Sophia Dorothea was cultured, refined, and favoured diplomatic alliances through marriage, while Friedrich Wilhelm despised courtly extravagance and prioritised military service over diplomacy. Their relationship was often strained, particularly over the upbringing and marriage plans for their children. Sophia Dorothea championed a British marriage alliance for their son Friedrich, which Friedrich Wilhelm opposed. Despite frequent quarrels and opposing values, the marriage endured and produced 14 children, though only 10 survived to adulthood. Friedrich Ludwig, born 1707, Wilhelmina, born 1709, Friedrich Wilhelm, born 1710, Friedrich, born 1712, Charlotta Albertina, born 1713, Friederica Luisa, born 1714, Philippina Charlotta, born 1716, Ludwig Karl Wilhelm, born 1717, Sophia Dorothea, born 1719, Luisa Ulrika, born 1720, August Wilhelm, born 1722, Anna Amalia, born 1723, Heinrich, born 1726, and August Ferdinand, born 1730. Friedrich Ludwig, Friedrich Wilhelm, Charlotta Albertina, and Ludwig Karl Wilhelm died in childhood. Friedrich Wilhelm I was a strict and often authoritarian father, using corporal punishment and rigid expectations to mould his children. While this instilled discipline, it also led to emotional estrangement, particularly with Friedrich, who later adopted vastly different policies as king. In 1730, Friedrich attempted to flee Prussia, likely due to the unbearable pressure his father put him under, and the breakdown of the double marriage alliance, which would have seen Friedrich and his sister Wilhelmina each married to a member of the British royal family. The failed escape led to Friedrich's arrest and the execution of his close friend Hans Hermann von Katte. Friedrich Wilhelm saw the incident as treason and nearly disinherited his son. This trauma fractured the family. Friedrich was released after being forced to obey his father's military dictates and marry Elizabeth Christina of Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel against his will. The emotional rift lingered for years. Despite the abuse and alienation, Friedrich Wilhelm recognized his son's intelligence and prepared him rigorously for kingship. By the end of his reign, the two had reached an uneasy truce. The training Friedrich received, though often cruel and brutal, undeniably shaped his later success as a ruler and military commander. Perhaps Friedrich Wilhelm's most significant contribution to Prussia was the development of a powerful, disciplined army. At the start of his reign, the Prussian military numbered around 38,000. By the time of his death, this number had grown to over 80,000, making it one of the largest standing armies in Europe relative to the country's population. Friedrich Wilhelm implemented rigorous training regimens, standardized weapons and uniforms, and improved supply logistics. He emphasized drill and discipline over heroic warfare, ensuring that every soldier was a cog in a well-oiled machine. The king himself led military exercises and expected the nobility to serve as officers, tying the aristocracy's status directly to military service. The canton system, introduced in 1733, was another major innovation. It divided the country into districts, each responsible for providing a set number of recruits annually. This system ensured a steady and manageable flow of manpower while keeping the military embedded within society. Notably, Friedrich Wilhelm was obsessed with tall soldiers, creating the famed Potsdam Giants, an elite regiment composed of men over 6 feet tall. The regiment symbolized the king's fixation on physical discipline and visual grandeur in service of the state. Friedrich Wilhelm I's domestic policies mirrored his military ethos, frugal, efficient, and centralized. He drastically reduced royal expenditures and nearly eliminated the national debt. He cut down government corruption and enforced a strict meritocracy within the civil service. Prussia under his rule became synonymous with punctuality, order, and bureaucratic rigor. The king is credited with building a modern civil service composed of educated, loyal administrators. Positions were filled based on competence rather than aristocratic birth. Tax collection improved dramatically under his watch. He implemented land taxes and restructured revenue systems to make them more equitable and efficient. This fiscal discipline enabled him to finance his military expansion without plunging the country into financial ruin. While the king prioritized military and administrative reform, he did not neglect economic development. Friedrich Wilhelm encouraged agricultural activity, especially in underutilized regions like East Prussia. He introduced reforms to drain swamps, clear forests, and provide subsidies to peasant farmers. He also promoted immigration of skilled workers, particularly Protestants from elsewhere in Europe, such as the Salzburg Protestants who were expelled from Austria. These immigrants brought valuable agricultural and artisanal skills that benefited the economy. Industry remained underdeveloped during his reign. Friedrich Wilhelm saw commerce as secondary to military readiness and agricultural stability. He discouraged luxury imports and consumption, focusing instead on self-sufficiency. Although Friedrich Wilhelm was deeply religious, he did not support the broader Enlightenment movement. He distrusted intellectualism, considering it a distraction from practical service to the state. He closed down some schools, redirected university funding toward military and administrative training, and curtailed academic freedoms. Still, he remained a devout Protestant and viewed religious instruction as essential for moral discipline. He promoted Lutheran orthodoxy, but was relatively tolerant of other Protestant sects. Catholicism, on the other hand, though present in some parts of Prussia, was viewed with suspicion, especially in relation to Habsburg Austria. Friedrich Wilhelm I was not interested in territorial conquest. His foreign policy was cautious and pragmatic, focused on preserving Prussia's sovereignty and avoiding costly wars. He withdrew from most diplomatic entanglements and prioritized the internal strengthening of his realm. He avoided the War of Polish Succession and remained neutral in many of the conflicts that destabilized Europe during his reign. Friedrich Wilhelm I was an anti-intellectual who disdained the arts, courtly manners, and luxury. He reduced funding for music, architecture, and philosophy. This created a cultural drought at court, which was only reversed after Friedrich the Great's ascension. However, Friedrich Wilhelm did not reject culture entirely. He built schools for commoners, improved church facilities, and maintained certain traditions that upheld social order. His disdain for flamboyant culture was a calculated stance to mold a society centered on service and simplicity. His reign also saw a new kind of Prussian identity form, one based not on aristocratic privilege but on loyalty to the state, military service, and administrative competence. Friedrich Wilhelm I died on the 31st of May, 1740, from complications of gout and other illnesses. He was succeeded by his son Friedrich II, who would later become Friedrich the Great, one of Europe's most famous Enlightenment monarchs.